Welcome back to Superstar Glam. Today's video is a review on the new Anastasia Beverly Hills NOUVEAU palette. I hope I said it right. If you're a lover of beauty, then you would love this channel because I do everything from reviews to tutorials. And I recommend that you click down below to subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. If you're interested in this review video, then just keep watching. So to get started, I always start off my palette reviews with my go-to primer. Most of the time it will be MAC Pro Longwear Paint Pot in a soft ochre. And if not that one, it's always something that I have used in the past, so therefore I'm familiar with the outcome. So if there's any issues with the formula of the palette, I know that it's not the primer that I am using. So here is the palette. I got it pretty early on, but I have had a lot of things going on in my life, therefore I'm barely getting to it. I love the packaging. It's not like the Renaissance palette, which is like really velvety. Therefore, it makes it prone to everything to attach to it. This one's like definitely like material, like it has texture, like a really tough outer layer. And what's different also about this palette is, at least from all of the palettes that I have seen in the past, is that the pans are actually a lot bigger. Let me pull out one of the other palettes and see if the ounce or grams per shadows are the same. So comparing this palette to two palettes that I have more palettes, but two of that I just picked up, is the Modern Renaissance, and apparently this has 0.7 grams in the shadows. Just the pan size alone is significantly smaller. This one is 0.73 grams. I don't know that this was the last one they released. I could be wrong. So now the shadows each have 1.34 grams. So that is definitely significant comparing it to other palettes that I have. And if you wanted to get technical, then I guess it also makes sense why the increase in price, because this does retail for $55. There's so many really pretty colors, mattes, and shimmers that I'm not sure where I want to start, but for sure I'm going to start off with Paloma. Okay, there's a lot of kickoff. Now I'm going to apply this to the brow bone. It's pigmented for sure. So yeah, you just have to tap and you actually pick up quite a bit of pigment. On a fluffy brush, I'm going to go in with Fleur, this shade right here. It's like, I don't know, I would say like a mauvey pink. And yes, definitely so far the two that I have tried, they're very pigmented. And this one I'm just going to apply it as a transition. Yeah, there's not a lot of swirling that you have to do when you pick up the pigment, because they're super pigmented, so you don't really need to go in and like swirl on the pan. Like you tap and you literally have pigment on your brush. I mean, do as you please, but you are going to be wasting a lot of product because, like I said, it does have a lot of kickoff. The next shadow I'm taking is Liberty. I'm going to say that it looks a little gray, but I think it's like an olive gray, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just going to bring it into the crease area to create definition. And so far, they are all working nicely together. And if anything, I feel like it's making the blending and application is going really smoothly. Like it's not making me put in too much work to blend. I'm going to go back to the transition color and just go over the edges and just help blend that color out. Okay, so far I am loving how these shadows are performing. I always try to incorporate as many colors as possible to get a better idea of the palette overall. So I'm going to go in with Metro and start working it in the outer portion of the lid. I'm just going to keep it here. That's such a pretty color. Just do these three colors that I've used, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, just these 4 shades that I've used, I really do love how they combine together. Just creates a really soft, like, I don't know, call it like romantic a look. Using the same brush, this is like actually a dome brush. I'm gonna take a little bit of the shade called Muse. It does have some shimmer, but it's also the darkest shade in this palette. So I'm going to use that to pop out here in the outside corner for definition. Going back to Metro just to help blend those two together. So just that Muse shade I just used to deepen up the shade called Metro. And so far all the colors that I have blended together have not had any issues. That's something that I look for when I'm testing out new shadows, is how many shadows can you blend together before it starts getting muddy. And so far there are no issues. I'm going to take the fluffy brush and the shade called Fleur and go back to re-intensify the crease transition color. Now the hard part is, what color do I want to pop in the lid, since they're all so pretty. I mean, Wisteria is definitely really cute and pretty. Lily is really pretty. Hope, Belle. So far, I'm going around and just swatching. I had not swatched this at all. And so far, all of the shimmers are really smooth and buttery feeling. I don't know if you can see these swatches. Just so pretty. Okay, so I definitely want the lid portion to be lighter. Actually, I'm going to go with both. I'm going to apply Lily and then Isle or Islet on the center portion, or maybe inner corner. Yeah, I'm going to do inner corner. Okay. I'm also going to wet my brush. This is such a pretty color, and on the pen it looks really pink, but it's not pigmented, but it does have a lot of shimmer. And then the shimmer has it has a shift of green, gold, pink, and purple. Really, really pretty. And definitely it would complement any of the shades on this palette because of that shift. So the first portion is done. So I'll come back once I'm done with the rest of my face and finish the bottom portion of the eye. Okay, so I decided to take it's a NYX Faux White. This is in the shade Lavender Blush, and I'm going to apply this to the waterline. And then I'm going to go in with Wisteria, I decided that I wanted to apply that to the bottom lash line. I do have to say there is an asterisk when it comes to this shade Wisteria. It's not safe for the eyes. Whatever that means, it is a disclaimer they have to put, but I'm not typically sensitive to any products, so I'm going to risk it and use it. But I am letting you know to use with caution in case you are typically sensitive to certain shades. I'm going to use a flat brush and use the shade Wisteria and basically seal the waterline with this shade. I'm going to take the shimmer shade Peacock on the same brush, and I'm just going to use this to kind of deepen the bottom outer corner lash line. Just kind of like on top of that shade I used. And again, it's just mostly to add dimension in that outer corner. I'm just going to apply a little bit of mascara on the lower lash line. So this is the completed look. Okay, so let's talk about this palette. This palette is, in my opinion, one of the top quality palettes that Anastasia of Beverly Hills has released. It has pigmentation and it has blendability. It is described as an all-in-one palette for instant effortless looks from on the go to ultra glam. I really did love the packaging of this palette and also the pan size. I forgot to include the inner corner, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to use the shade Isla or Isle. Look at that. The color story is definitely a unique color story that it's not a typical color story you see often, especially when you're talking about a neutral palette. I would definitely consider this to be a neutral palette with different tones. You can use this palette as an everyday palette and it just gives you such a beautiful look every time. Mixing different shades here, changing up the crease area and just the shimmers. I think this is definitely a versatile and, like I said, a neutral palette. Nothing to do with the neutral browns and the neutral black palettes. It's definitely a neutral wearable shades that just complement every skin tone. And I love that about this. I love that this is still a wearable neutral palette, but just a different tone. I definitely think of, Paris and romantic cottage feeling when I see these tones. I don't know. That's just immediately what comes into my mind. And I can totally see myself wearing this palette a lot more often and not glammed up like I did today. Definitely more of like a toned down palette works for that also. The formula is one of the top that I've experienced from all of the Anastasia palettes that I have in my collection. So far, the shimmers that I have applied and swatched are incredible. They're very pigmented. They're very shimmery if they're shimmery. They did have a lot of kickoff, which is kind of typical for a lot of her shadows. But if you're just careful and you go in with a brush and just dust it off, you won't experience a lot of fallout on your face. So I would just give you that as a tip when you are working with the formula. But as far as blendability, they blended out so nicely, so seamless, so effortless. Like if you're not so good at applying your makeup, these shadows blend out so nicely and so fast that it wouldn't require much work to blend them out so seamlessly. They actually blended out so fast that they just looked effortless. Definitely recommend this palette. Like I said, I know that typically when we talk about neutral palettes, one way or another we have them in our collection. So I would definitely recommend it because this is another neutral palette that you must have in your collection because, like I said, it just creates a different tone to your looks. It does retail for $55, which is a pretty steep price point, but I do have to add that they have included more grams per shadow compared to the other shadow palettes that I have from her collection. So I feel like it kind of justifies the price point. Overall, Anastasia as a brand, I have picked up several of her eyeshadow palettes that she has released throughout the years. A lot of them were very much collaboration, so they were limited edition. I do have a few of the permanent eyeshadow palettes that she has in her line, and also some of the palettes that Norvina release. I only have one of those, but in terms of the quality overall as a brand, I've always loved her eyeshadows. There were definitely always high standard, never any issues. In my opinion, has one of the top eyeshadow formulas out there. I've never had a bad palette. I think the only thing that if I had to say about one of the palettes, let me see if I could pull that out. Oh, it was the this one, the Self-Made palette. I found it to be a little basic and kind of boring. I didn't see myself reaching for this palette just based on the color. So this one I would say is probably the least favorite of mine from all of the palettes that I have collected from her. I've also appreciated the fact that in the past, almost all of her eyeshadow palettes have come with a brush, and they're actually really good. They're not like the best quality brushes, but they actually function and work really, really nicely, which I can see based on this palette, she probably is no longer going to be including a brush in here. Having several of her palettes, how many brushes do I need? I have actually, I don't know if anybody does this, but I do keep all of the brushes inside the container. I don't know why. It's just, I guess if I ever travel with this, it's nice to have a place for the brush, and it's like the convenience of it. Maybe that's what I would probably miss from, this is the Renaissance palette. Again, the brush is still in here. I guess that's what I would probably miss about this new palette, not having an eyeshadow palette, and then I feel like that set her apart from all the other ones. So if I wanted to travel with this palette, now I don't have a brush, so I would have to include it. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it is something to note. I definitely recommend it. It's definitely approved here on my channel, in my opinion, and can't wait to create more looks using this palette. I will link it down below if you're interested. Let me know if you would like to see more looks using this palette. Please include that in the comment section down below. Other than that, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you next time. Bye.